Whoa. We rolling?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Right, well, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, bro. Just so at least, you're like the first guest that I have on the podcast that one actually has like a creative process to the things that you do.
Right.
So I mean, like, you actually do filmmaking or something creative. And you're the first guest that like I can actually ask like kind of questions around those sort of things, you know what I mean? Because for the most part I've had friends and family, and not to say that they're not doing anything,
Sure.
but it's just more so like they don't have a particular niche.
Sure. Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, cool. Well, that subject of creativity, I'd actually like to use that opportunity to give you some accolade, if you'll allow me. I don't know how you take that generally. We can have that conversation in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing. How many episodes are out now?
But I see what I'm saying. I'm not even keeping on top of it, but I think it's 16.
16.
Yeah,
So congrats, man. That's awesome. So I think I have a three-pronged compliment to give you. It might take me a few minutes to get this out. My name's Callum Oakaby Wright, by the way. That's my introduction.
Filmmaker, songwriter, singer, actor. No, I'm joking.
So first and foremost, you have decided to make a thing.
Yeah.
And you've done it, right? And you're 16 episodes deep, and you're going on, and that's excellent, man. When I was younger, I once went to the cinema. I was already making films, but much younger, and wasn't making things to maybe and I'm not saying that the level of what I'm making now is spectacular, but not to the degree of what I'm doing now. And I went to the cinema and I saw this film called Kill List, and it was by a guy called Ben Wheatley. And I recognised while watching it, I was like, this is like an independent joint, man. This isn't like a big Hollywood budget. This is a small British film, and it's managed to hit the cinema. But while I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, well, if I had a little bit more in the way of budget, a little bit more in the way of crew, etc., this is the kind of film I feel like I could be making in the next few years. And that really inspired me. Yeah, Kill List. And I thought to myself, well, being that this guy's clearly very independent, maybe he's contactable. So I sent him an email. I found his email address and sent him an email, and basically said, like, I really loved the film, and I sent him the film I had just made, a little short film that I'd just made. Next morning, I wake up, I don't know, 9 a.m. or something. Lo and behold, I already have a response from him.
Damn.
And it was probably, I don't know, if I was to copy and paste it, it's probably like an A4 piece of paper, maybe 2 A4 pieces of paper. So, you know, he didn't skimp on it. He gave me a proper response, and in it was one of the most critical analyses I've ever got from any of my work up until this point. Because obviously at the time I was young and I was making films, and basically the only people seeing it were my mates, right?
Yeah.
And obviously they were going, oh, yeah, it's really good, you know, but they didn't really give anything in the way of critique, you know. So this guy gives me this massive list of like, this isn't great, you're not really casting the right ages for what you're trying to do, etc., etc., etc. This long list. At the bottom, however, he writes, but the fact of the matter is, you've made a thing, and that puts you above 99% of the people that sit and talk about making a thing in a pub but never actually do it. So you're already there, man. You're already on track. So I want to reiterate Ben Wheatley's point to you and saying the fact that you're doing it is wicked. So that's number one.
Appreciate that a lot.
Number two, and we were talking about this off air earlier, but I must say something I find very extraordinary, and I think a lot of people should take heed of, is the ability to... So you've had episodes where it's just you, right? And I've enjoyed those episodes very much. The ability to just sit with your own thoughts and talk out loud, and have the confidence to talk out loud, right? A lot of people would maybe feel either like, oh, I'm too nervous to even attempt that, or maybe they'd even feel like I don't have enough to say or anything like this, right? And I think it's actually very important sometimes to actually vocalize your own thoughts, because not enough people do, and I think sometimes when a thought exists in your head, it basically only exists as a concept, right? And until you've actually verbalized the thing, it doesn't really exist. Like you can't really like tangibly figure it out. Right?
I get what you're saying.
So, for instance, have you ever heard the word sonder?
I have, but I don't know what it actually means.
Fine. So basically everyone has experienced sonder, and when I hear people talk about this, and often it's always the same example people give, and every time I'm like, you've experienced sonder, but because you don't know the word, you don't know you've experienced it, right?
Right.
And basically a lot of people I've spoken to have said, I was on the motorway the other day, and there was cars obviously going in the other direction, and I just thought to myself, I wonder what the person in that car's doing. I wonder where they're going.
Right.
And basically, it's it's a very small realization that other people are the main characters in their own movie and not an extra in your movie, right? They're just as complex, just as emotionally charged. They've got just as many problems. That And I think everyone's had that thought, of course, but until you actually attach a word to it, you don't know
what that is, right?
So I think, as I say, sometimes the act of vocalizing actually helps secure concepts, right? So I think that's wicked. And maybe you've experienced that in the act of speaking things out. You go, actually, now I've spoken it out, I actually understand that a bit better. I don't know. I'm obviously speaking for you there.
No. I think that's the case, bro. I think I've had so many times where so I don't know about you, but when I think about things in my head and I don't vocalize it, it seems very clear in the moment, but when you try to recall it, sometimes it's a little bit like, whoa, what was it exactly that I thought about again? Do you know what I mean? And then I find that vocalizing it, whether it's through conversation with people or when I'm sat down in front of the camera by myself, it helps to, like you say, materialize it, make it tangible, make it real. So yeah, I've definitely experienced that, bro. 100%, man. It helps clarify my thoughts a little bit better. Helps me gain a bit more of a better understanding of what it was that I was thinking about, that I might have been feeling, or that I might have been trying to get answers for, whatever it is. So no, I've definitely had moments like that.
For sure, man.
And for the whole Sonder thing too, all the time, bro, especially in recent times. I try to remind myself that we're all one and the same, and in certain moments where I might feel nervous, for me, I try to remember that the other person's probably feeling the same thing too.
Exactly that.
Do you know what I mean?
I know a lot of people that worry about I look a mess today, I look a state or whatever, right? I must look terrible to the other people in public. The other people aren't thinking about what you look like.
They don't
They're
care.
worried about how they look in public, right? And I think sometimes what's funny is it's actually kind of somewhat attached to the ego, right? You might feel bad in yourself.
Yeah.
And I think people often think that ego and narcissism are the same thing. But they're
different.
Because ego is actually, it can be a negative, right?
It can also be a positive.
It can also be a positive.
Right.
So that's two, right? And then I've got a third as well. The third thing that I think is really interesting about the work you've been doing, especially the ones where you've been speaking to yourself, and I found this to be quite influential, I must say, is I was listening to some of the podcasts. I was listening to them rather than watching them. I maybe start watching it and then I'll be off doing some work and still got it in my headphones, whatever. And there'd be a couple of moments where I go, oh, has the video stopped, or is it buffering or something? And I'd look over, and it wasn't. It was that you were just sat kind of just regaining your thoughts for a second, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's so wonderful about that is, especially when you're talking alone, but also when you're talking with other people as well, and I think this is something that people should start taking on board, is that I think people are often too concerned with sounding intellectual or having the most amazing vocabulary. Everyone wants to be able to talk like Russell Brand talks, right? But very few people do, right? And I think I'm a victim to this. I've tried this so many times, and what tends to happen is I get so tongue-tied and actually kind of lose track of my own thought. And in the attempt to sound intellectual, I actually end up sounding dumber.
The opposite
right?
of what you intended, right?
And I think sometimes if you have a very solid point that you wanna put across, I think it's actually very important to actually just sit and go, right, what is the point I'm going to try and put across? Gather that thought and then go for it. And I think it's a very, very special ability to be able to do that. And since listening to your podcast, that was a thought I had listening to it. And I started thinking to myself, I need to do that a bit more actually, because yeah, it's actually, it will serve you better in the long run than trying to like and actually just sound like a dick. Can I swear in this?
Yeah, bro, you can do whatever you want. It's cool, man.
Fuck yeah. Cool, man. So yeah, those are my three.
I appreciate that a lot, man. Honestly, bro, I appreciate that a lot.
And yeah, so yeah, that was actually going to be my next question is how do you take criticism and compliments?
Well, look, I think for me it really depends, man. I think like just when it's like when it's a compliment that's like, oh bro, I really like your stuff, it's so good, man, and that's it. Like, it's a bit weird for me, you know what I mean? I don't really like taking compliments too much because I don't know how to receive them. Do you know what I'm saying?
It needs to be constructive, I think.
Yeah. So this is the point I was gonna get to. And like when people give me criticism, on the other hand, like I also try to shy away and really not listen to it, because part of why I do this is I'm doing it how I would like to do it and how I would want to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's really and truly is no rules. Like, fair enough, there's a format for a podcast that most people follow, but really and truly, like, there is no rules. You can just do it how you want to do it.
Exactly.
So when people have told me, like, when you're speaking, try to say things a little bit less like I think or like and and this and that and the next. Like, I don't know, it boxes me in. I don't like it because the way I see it,
get too in your head about it, right?
Yeah, and the way I see it is that's just how in that particular moment I felt and what I just kind of felt like saying. So like, if I'm gonna do anything different, it's then kind of not really true to what I wanted it to be.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It becomes disingenuous.
Yeah. So
I think that can be the same when people say something like, oh, when you ask like, oh, what did you think? And they go, oh, it was really good. That can be kind of a disingenuous answer, and you can't. I feel personally like I sometimes struggle to take that. I'd rather like negative criticism, because I feel like sometimes if someone says, "Oh, it's really good," I start like getting in my own head about it and going like, "Yeah, but okay, did you actually like it, or are you just trying to make me feel good because you're a friend of mine?"
Yeah,
or
literally.
Like I don't. Then all of a sudden you're just like, what? You know? Yeah, I really struggle with that. I really do. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, bro. So that's where I sit with like compliments and criticism, innit? But I think what was nice about what you said, because I actually really enjoyed it, bro. Like, genuinely, I think it's the first time that like someone's complimented you in a while that I sit and I'm like, you know what? Like, I enjoy that because I see now like the impact, no matter how small it is, that it can have on people.
Absolutely, man.
So just seeing like you told me that, look, like these are the things that I like, and you know what? Like, I've also tried to do it myself, or like these are thoughts that it's given me, and share those thoughts with me. I think for me that serves a lot more than just like a simple I like your stuff, bro, or just like like stop saying and you know what I mean?
For sure, man. I'm a serial so this podcast just gonna be all over the place.
Yeah, bro, just that's it. But I don't mind, man.
Gotta do it.
It is what it is. But yeah, man, look, like honestly, I appreciate that a lot, man. So yeah, that's something that I've just realised today as well.
Nice, man.
I've always struggled with that stuff, but yeah, for today, I can't lie, I've appreciated it a lot, man.
Good. So do you have an idea of some things you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I had like a start, like just a question that I had in my head as I was coming here. Yeah,
sure.
And to be fair, look, it's funny because it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand when we was talking about like twin flames and moments where it's just like when you know.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that I see are trying to find like their thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I think there's some people that have found it, some people that haven't found it. Like, for example, I have a friend who's recently just started rapping, and when I started listening to it, like, this is something that I would have never expected because he's done anything but creative things his whole life, pretty much. And when he started when he put on a song and I started listening, like, there was a particular moment where I just felt as though, yeah, like, you found your thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is undeniable, you found your thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, at what point do you feel like you got there with like, the filmmaking stuff, or just, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, for a little bit of context, yeah, I'm a filmmaker, and I've been doing it for well over half my life now.
Nice.
And that started in terms of the act of actually making movies. That started when I was in secondary school. Really, I had a little handy cam. I was just shooting little things, and then after a while, started going like, well, actually, I've been so much like the way this podcast is shot. Right, this is how I would shoot my movies.
Nice.
This would be like, we'd set up the camera, we'd shoot it all basically like a play, right? We'd just act in front of the camera.
Okay, yeah, nice.
And then at some point I was like, well, actually, I mean, I do have like editing software, and that means that actually I could technically change the angle and then edit those two things together. And then, you know, I try it the first time and it would be terrible. Like the edit wouldn't work. Try it another time. And then eventually you kind of recognize, okay, now I know how that works. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then it starts looking good. Okay, now I'm starting to get somewhere. And then I'd find a blend tool on the editing software that meant that you could overlap two shots. And if I filmed this bench empty and then I filmed the bench with us on it and then overlaid those two shots, we'd look like basically we look like ghosts.
Yeah.
Oh my god, like, holy shit, I can make a movie about a ghost. What? Like, and I'd do that, and I'd make it, you know, and basically it was just this constant progress of discovery and experimentation.
Nice.
And basically collating and collecting a bank of skills and visual aesthetics, you know, and everything, you know. And that journey has not stopped, by the way. That is still absolutely a thing, and I don't think that will ever end. I don't think that in the creative process that can really ever end. But in terms of when my spark started, so to speak, mine, for my money, it's beautifully poetic, because my first memory is of being in a cinema watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is, as a result, my favourite Disney movie.
Nice.
And my first memory is the opening shot of that movie. Have you seen that film?
No.
Amazing.
I need to watch it. I didn't need to watch it. Yeah,
incredible movie, like legitimately incredible. Like, I know I sound biased right now, but legitimately, as far as Disney movies go, it's insanely good. And just being blown away by this fucking movie, like, holy shit! Like, and I think that literally was the moment of spark. Like, wow, whatever this is, I want this. And this was before I could like intelligently or tangibly kind of explain what that meant. Because I was a kid, I was like 3, 2, 3.
Oh, so you was young,
really young.
Right. But you still have this memory, like, so.
It's my first vivid memory for sure, man. And then when I was 6. I remember seeing The Matrix and going, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, that's incredible. And then a few years after that, 6 years after that, so I would have been 12, I saw Batman Begins.
Nice. Is this part of Christopher Nolan trilogy, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The first of the 3. And kind of, I went with a mate. And basically, this was when the superhero movie boom had just about started. The Spider-Man movies had just come out. And we went to see a Batman movie. And basically, we went in and we were like, we're going to see a Batman movie. Very cool. And I came out going like, that was like one of the best films I've ever seen. My mate was going, that was a cool movie. And I'm like, yes,
hold on a second.
No.
Yeah.
No, that was something else about that. And I resonated very, very deeply with whatever I just happened to see there, and so yeah, basically the inspiration, influences, and sparks were all going off in my youth.
Yeah,
and it triggered a lifetime venture, I hope.
Nice,
which I hope will never end.
Nice.
So yeah, very lucky. There's a Pixar film called Soul.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, amazing.
I need to rewatch it again though.
It's basically about this, right? It's about like finding your spark.
Finding your
makes
thing.
you want to live, right? And that film so deeply resonated with me, despite the fact, and this is one of the beautiful things about film, is it could be about something you don't give a shit about. For instance, I don't really care for sports, like, not like traditionally. But there's a film called Moneyball, which is like, it's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's about something I don't care about at all, or I don't resonate with at all, at least. And you know, Soul is about a jazz drummer, jazz pianist. And it's like, well, that's not something I'm pursuing. I love the music, of course, but it's not something I'm pursuing. So why do I resonate so deeply? That's because it's the power of movies. You resonate with the character because he has this goal, he has this ambition, and you want him to do well. People might go, well, it's an animated character, but it's like, no.
It's the storyline. It's the storyline.
Absolutely, it's the story and character, and that's what I strive towards in my work is to do these traditional things, you know. And at the moment, obviously, there's with the TikTok boom and all this kind of stuff, there's a lot of what's the word? like a lack of attention deficit, there's
Yes.
no attention span, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of people are making movies to accommodate for that. I can't accommodate for that.
Yeah, man, I don't think you should, bro. I don't think you should. Like, like, so there was a few things that I don't know that kind of sprung to mind when you were saying all these things. Yeah. Hopefully I can recall back on like all the things that I thought. Well, look, I think one thing that really catches me, especially now when I watch films, is the storyline and how it makes me feel in particular, like, I don't know, like, might be scenes or just moments in the movies or whatever it is, and like how much that resonates with what I've experienced in real life now. So it was only up until fairly recently, I'd say, tops, maybe like a year and a half ago, where I started watching films and I'd really get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd sit down and I'd be like, right, I think I just saw, and it feels like I just saw either what the actor was trying to give in this particular scene or like what the director was trying to show in this particular movie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of that came from like reflection in my own life and like trying to align myself with, I don't know, like the path that I'm supposed to be on. Because for the most part, when I was outside of that and just living like a very chaotic life and not caring about many things and being very destructive, like things like appreciating art for like what they really are, I wouldn't really see and I wouldn't really like experience.
Yeah.
So there's been a few films that I've rewatched recently that like I've seen in the past, but now that I've rewatched it, I've seen a whole completely different thing.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, man, it's incredible to kind of sit through. So there's many things that I appreciate now with films. So stuff like Soul and stuff like when you're like, I don't resonate, or I shouldn't resonate because I'm not a jazz player and I don't care for like being a pianist. But it's the storyline and the way that it's told and how like it reflects maybe for most people, some people, like parts of their life that really like catches their attention and gravitates them towards that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, it's something that I've really been like having fun with and experiencing quite a lot. And yeah, man, I can't lie, I experienced it yesterday with Sausage Party. So I was at home and I put on I can't remember what I put on. I think it was Super Soul. Have you seen Super Soul on Netflix?
No.
So Super Soul is about it's a series on Netflix and it's about like Londoners, and it's specifically black people who, like, only black people suffer from sickle cell, right?
Yep.
So there's a group of people that are experimenting on individuals that have sickle cell, and they're giving them this, like, I don't know what it might be, like some sort of cure or whatever, but it gives them powers.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're kind of just like left out in London, and then, you know, people start discovering their powers and whatever. Anyways, I put it on and I was a little bit baked, so I was like, you know what, like, I don't really want to watch this right now. And for some reason, Sausage Party's just really been calling my name.
It's the perfect movie for it.
Yeah, man, 100%, bro. And I had seen the film before, and when I'd watched it before, like, I kind of go there and it's like, yes, it's funny and it's also very interesting and whatever, like, it's a good movie. Left it at that. But when I rewatched it again yesterday, like, I really sat down and tried to take it in. And even though it's one of the most like silliest movies you could watch, the animation is just like very silly. Some of the things that they do are very stupid. Like, the actual storyline, the message behind it, for me was just like, yeah, I can't lie, this is gonna go over quite a lot of people's heads, but if you get it, you get it. And I think that's what really makes me appreciate that film much more now. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's good, man. It's never too late to discover it, man. I remember I was listening to this podcast with the director Edgar Wright, and he opened out to like an audience Q&A, and they were talking about the film Evil Dead 2, which is a big sort of what's the word?
What, like a staple horror movie?
Sure. That's kind of, it's like underground, but now it's like appreciated. There's a word I can't.
Okay.
But it was talking about that, and this person in the audience who was doing the Q&A had said he hadn't seen it. And the audience went like mental. They were like booing, what, you haven't seen Evil Dead 2? Like, everyone here is like a cinephile, surely you've seen Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
And Edgar Wright stopped the carnage for a second. He was like, everyone, like, what are you talking about? Why are you getting so angry at this guy? He gets to see it for the first time. You should all be jealous of this one.
Yeah.
And it's so true, man. I think people who, there's a lot of pretension when it comes to film, right? I think this actually stops a lot of people from ever kind of properly delving, because they're like, oh, I'm never gonna appreciate avant-garde French cinema.
Right,
it's not on my thing. So I can't allow myself to get into cinema, you know. it's just not the case, man. I've seen these people. I know these people who basically define their personality on like foreign cinema, independent cinema, all this
Right,
kind
I
of
get what
stuff.
you're saying.
And I love those movies, of course. But Mad Max Fury Road is also very, very good.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Like,
Do you know what I'm
you know,
saying? Yeah.
Kingsman's amazing.
Yeah, man. It's being able to appreciate the picture as a whole rather than just that one specific
Exactly.
niche. No, I get what you're saying, man. I get what you're saying. That's
As I
funny,
say, it's
man.
never too late to discover these movies, and even on a rewatch, you know, there'll be films that I've seen when I was young that I appreciated to a degree, but then I rewatch and go, oh wow, that's actually amazing. Annoyingly, sometimes the alternative can happen where you appreciated it when you were younger and you watch it again, like, oh no, this is not
why
good.
did I?
And I've actually avoided certain movies because like my memory of how good it was will always be better than the film, so I'm actually going to avoid the film because it's never going to live up.
Can you
to my
remember any off the
childhood
top of your
memory.
head? I'm trying to think of maybe like one or two that I've seen that I like.
There's been a few recently that I was really tentative
I
to
do have
watch.
one, actually.
Or what one?
Spy Kids, I think it's Spy Kids. Or like, what was it? Yeah, Shark Boy and Lava Girl or something like this,
Shark
man.
Boy and
Like,
Lava
these
Girl,
were the things that I watched growing up. and
Yeah,
as a kid,
yeah.
they're sick. And I think I rewatched it, like, not recently, but like at a point where it's like I can remember
Yeah.
very well that I was a bit older and I was just like, yeah, no, this is, do you know what I mean? This is, no.
I was very tentative recently about rewatching the Ace Ventura movies. I was just like, I feel like they're probably just going to be really silly because they always were. But I rewatched them. I was like, oh, no, they are. Still
yeah.
So, thank God.
But that's Jim Carrey for you though, man. Jim Carrey gets
sure,
it. He gets it for sure, man.
He's a legend, man. Truly.
If there was any actor, yeah, that you'd want to work with, who would it be?
It's an interesting one, man, because out of Hollywood you get all these stories about how people are just ultimately arseholes, and it makes you so scared. And you know, there's that phrase like never meet your heroes, and it does make you very scared. I've worked on film sets where there have been people I've looked up to massively, and I've just said, oh, you're just horrible, you're just a horrible person. It sucks.
But is that like horrible, like majority of the time, or just horrible because it was in a particular situation of like stress and?
Of course, I can never truly know.
Right.
I'm maybe judging a book by its first few pages there, and alternatively, I've met ones that are really, really nice, but could also be arseholes, right?
Right.
Yeah, you can never truly know, but having a bad experience really kind of makes you go like, I don't want to do it. I think there are actors that I appreciate and absolutely love. For the longest time, I've thought to myself, making a movie with like Tom Hardy, for instance, would be like incredible.
That's a good one.
But yeah, at the same time, I feel like at the moment I kind of often put myself in the position of where I currently am at in terms of like. So at the moment, I don't have access to those like massive levels of actors.
So it's not something that's like
it
concern
doesn't
of yours.
really enter my mind when I'm writing my scripts. I'm kind of either writing it for no one because I know like, well, you know, the casting process will find the person, or the person I have in mind is someone that I know or is much more local, is like a much lower level actor. And what's wonderful about that is lower level by no means means worse. They're usually as good, sometimes even better. And I often really like casting friends as well, not friends or acquaintances. Basically, if I meet up with an acquaintance, there'll be something about that person sometimes that I recognise, like, oh, you're going to make a wicked actor. Because I think what I find so strange about people that come out through drama school, you know, they're amazing at a certain kind of acting, but they all come from the same school, right? So they all kind of have the same abilities.
Right.
They all come out with a very similar thing about them, and I don't know, you start noticing it once you really delve into it and you sort of look into performance. You can almost start to pinpoint like, oh yeah, them two went to the same school because their performances are kind of touching on similar things. I actually kind of prefer people that didn't go to drama school at all. I find that their performances tend to be a lot more naturalistic. I've delved somewhat into acting myself recently, and I didn't do any drama school stuff, and I'm by no means saying I'm a good actor, but I've enjoyed the process of discovering it outside of the traditional learning techniques that a school would give you. And I think what that's afforded me is like a different acting style that sometimes works kind of really well and other times maybe not so well. But with it, much like what I was saying earlier about you kind of learn with every project you do, with every project I've subsequently acted in, kind of gone, actually, the first film I would say 15% of my performance there was good. Second one maybe 30, and now I'm getting to the point where it's like 75% of this is really good, you know. So it's nice, man. It's nice.
I was thinking, like, as you were saying, I was thinking that, like, I remember being younger and not really liking the idea of like university or like just studying creative things, because I think the whole point of creative things is to be free with how you do them and free of expression, innit? So where you say, and it's interesting that you say that, like, eventually you get to a point where it's like, that actor and that actor went to the same school, or like these guys are all doing the same thing, and like your skills are very just similar because you went to this like school, whatever it is. And I think teaching creativity puts like confinements on it, and it doesn't allow you to kind of just expand and like go down your own avenue and make it very much just like your own thing. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very much with you on that one. I always thought to myself that, like, if I'm going to learn how to do something, like especially if it's creative, I'd rather learn how to do it myself, by myself, than like be told how to do it. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I tussled with this massively when I was deciding whether or not to go to uni for film. And I basically came to the conclusion, my college lecturers were the ones that ultimately convinced me, because they basically said, because I did a foundation degree first and then did a third year as a BA honours. And they convinced me to go on to the foundation degree because they basically said, like, look, at this facility, this is the equipment we have. You'll be paying £6,000 a year to be here. And for that £6,000, you will have access, constant access to this gear. You can basically make, if you were to make one short film with this gear, if you were to rent it yourself, you'd be spending upwards of that on one film. You've got a whole year of this shit. You could make 5 movies for £6,000. It's like, fuck yeah. And I'm not even really paying the £6,000 either because it's student loans. Oh my god. And they were absolutely right, man. Some of the best work I've ever done was in that time. But what the reason that worked for me was because I had lecturers that understood that, and they were nurturing that, and they were facilitating that. There are some lecturers that basically just want to teach you the rules. And then there's some lecturers that go, I'm going to teach you the rules so then you can go off and break them. And those are the ones that are inspirational. But you also need to, it's a reciprocal, right? You also need to be a student that's willing to take that on board and run with that. And there's some students that absolutely would not work with. And those are the ones that I guess acting schools thrive on, are the ones that, like, no, they don't want to break the rules. They want to stick to the rules, and we're going to teach them those rules. And they're going to come out of this uni with a high degree, and they'll get some good work, and it will give us some more prestige because we got this actor that's now in that film in our school. And
that's it.
That's what they want. It's, at the end of the day, the education system is effectively a business, and they want figureheads for that business. They want to go like, these are some success stories that came out of our facility. Thus, if you come to this facility, you might also end up like them. And people kind of see that as going, okay, so yeah, if I go to this facility and I follow the rules, maybe I'll end up there, rather than going, I don't want to follow the rules, I want to do my own shit, I want to do something interesting, I want to do something experimental, I want to do something fun.
The education system is quite flawed in that way, innit?
Massively.
It's not for education. Well, I mean, I guess you could argue that it is, fair enough, but I think they've just found a very basic structure that works and keeps people kind of like sucked into that same system because it works for most people, and that's what they kind of thrive off. No, it's true, man. That's why I think it is nice, and you can appreciate when you have a mentor that understands how flawed one particular way can be and doesn't like adhere to that and says, you know what, like, I'll teach you the rules, but go break them. Like, this is just this is more or less like your guiding compass when you navigate through the unknown, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely. And like, just use that to kind of help you in situations that you might get stuck in, but for the most part, figure it out for yourself, man.
Sure. Did you have any teachers like that? Do you have any that you kind of remember as inspirational in that way?
with you know what's funny, yeah, when I was in school, I didn't really study much creative things. Like for GCSE, was the most creative thing that I did was art, just drawing, because I don't know, I found it a bit fun at the time, and it was kind of like one less stressful GCSE to pick. Do you know what I mean? But I think I found something very similar with my maths teacher when I was studying maths at A levels and further maths. So a guy called Mr. Osborne, shout out Mr. Osborne. I really enjoyed learning with him, you know, because he made maths, and we studied mechanics with him. He made it very enjoyable, interactive, like fun, and in a way he allowed us to explore, and he allowed us to figure out, you know what I mean? And it created such a good environment in that classroom, like especially now that I look back at it compared to like other classrooms that I've been in. Like, I mean, for starters, it was a smaller class. There was only 6 of us, but the way class was more so like it was a collaboration of ideas rather than one person barking orders at another.
Yep.
Do you get what I'm saying? Yep. So for me, that was, I think that's probably why I chose to study maths at university, and probably why when I got to university I hated maths, because it wasn't like that. I didn't find that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's probably the closest that I've had to a mentor that kind of understands that, like, look, like these are the rules that we're supposed to give you and tell you that these are the only things you should follow, but you still got to figure things out for yourself regardless. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I
think that big time. It was exactly the same for me. As I say, I did 2 years of foundation, and then to top it up to a BA honours, I had to do a 3rd year at actual university, because I did the first 2 at college. When I went to that university, it was all different, and it was terrible, and I resented it, and I'd spent more money. I'd spent $9,000 for that year, and it was honestly, it was like a battery farm, man. It was literally like, just get people through. And basically they'd put us in a room. I think there must have been upwards of like 80 students in this year. And they'd basically go, right, okay, today we're all going to pitch a movie idea, and then we're going to pick like 10 of them, and then you'll then get into groups and you'll go off and make these movies. And I was like, okay, so what, our whole year is predicated on today? Like, damn. Holy shit. Like,
yeah, when you put it that way.
So all of a sudden you've got like mad pressure. You've got to like do an amazing pitch. My public speaking was terrible at the time. I was like, oh my God, like I spent the last 2 years basically doing anything I wanted, basically complete creative freedom. And as a result, I've done some of the best work I've ever done. And now all of a sudden, like my year is predicated on today, and I completely flopped it. And the other mad thing about that is like 80 pitches, and you have to sit in this one room for like 4 hours, and you have to keep tab of everything, and it's just like, what is this? It's terrible. Everything about this is terrible. And yeah, my idea ultimately did not get picked, and I was put in another group, and I basically went from directing and writing movies for the first 2 years of uni to then basically being what is called a script supervisor, and basically my job was to make sure that everyone was staying on script. Like, okay, yeah, you actually said your line a little bit wrong that time. Here's the line. That was basically my role. Glorify my 3rd year, my last year was that. I'm like, fuck, man, this is not creative freedom.
Yeah, it must have been a tough thing to swallow, that, man.
Yeah, it was real tough. I made some good friends in that year, so there's ultimately some good that came of it. I'll say that those friendships are worth $9,000. Yeah. I'm a bit resentful, but I'll say it. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I guess it's worth $9,000. No, I hear it. No, obviously there's got to be a silver lining somewhere. But yeah, that kind of sucks though, man. But at the same time though, it's nice that you've had the contrast of the two, so you actually know what's good and what's bad.
Indeed. And while because I do a little bit of lecturing myself, obviously now I have something I want to strive towards. I want students to come away and in 10-15 years time, when they're on a podcast talking about their inspirational teachers, that maybe my name comes up. Who knows? That's of course what I strive for.
Shout out Mr. Oakaby Wright. Was it Oakaby Wright?
Oakaby Wright.
Oakaby Wright. There you go. I'm terrible with names, man. But yeah, there you go. Shout out Mr. Oakaby Wright.
Well, that actually touches on an interesting point, though, man. Is that, like, obviously this is basically our first ever like conversation, right? Because we've met once before
at a pub,
and there was a lot of intoxication,
alcohol, noise, external factors,
and and even in that noise, we managed to recognise like, I think we can have a pretty cool conversation.
Yeah, man,
And
it's
so
nice,
it's nice.
man.
It's nice that we can actually finally meet up and get this going, man.
Yeah,
and
it's
finally
nice,
got some nice weather.
bro. Third time lucky.
Third time lucky. We've tried
time's
this
a
twice
charm,
before,
bro. Third time's a charm.
and it rained both times.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think it's worked out nicely, man. Look, it's been a beautiful day, nice little scenery. Come see the gardens in St. Albans. No, it's been cool, man. I like it. And you know what? What I find funny as well is that when you said this is literally the only, like, it's the second time we've met, second time we've had a conversation. I feel like there's certain people that you can just kind of sit down and have a conversation with as if you've known them for a while. I think once you level with someone like that and just talk about things that are beyond surface level, you kind of just know that, like,
yeah,
what's the point of beating around the bush here? Like, we can talk
Exactly.
about difficult things and just kind of get through it all together,
Exactly,
innit?
man.
So it's nice, man.
I was speaking with a sort of business head recently, and they were talking about like how terrible some people are at small talk, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, but small talk is a bit shit though, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, you don't want to be good at small talk.
I don't want one of my accolades to be that I'm great at small talk. It's not great, is it? It's not a
Nope.
good thing to be good at, really. This
That's
weather's
true.
lovely.
Yeah. It's been a good week, man. Yeah. Tough morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I know
that's
there's
true,
a
man.
time and a place, of course, but I think the quicker you can get down to brass facts, the quicker you can get down to like actually what makes two people compatible, the better. You know, I think actually, and I'm not really even practicing what I preach here, but you should generally, rule of thumb would be like, what are you interested in? That should be like one of the first questions.
Yeah.
But I think what tends to be the first question is, what do you do for work? 9 times out of 10, right? The
Yeah,
person
so
you
it's-
ask, what do you do for work? They're not going to enjoy the job they do. So it's not a conversation starter. The conversation will literally go, this, what do you do for work? I work in this job. I hate it. That sucks, man. Yeah.
And that's it.
See ya.
Yeah, literally, innit?
It's just
And
nothing.
to be fair, it's sad as well because like you kind of end up defining the person based on what on what their job is, rather than who they actually are.
Exactly that, man.
No, that's true, man.
And I think that's it's weird because when people ask me, obviously my go-to is to say, I'm a filmmaker, as opposed to the stuff that I do that makes me money.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, well, that's just infinitely more interesting, right? But at the same time, it feels a bit disingenuous because I'm like, I know what they're actually asking me.
Yeah,
they're asking me what I
yeah,
do for money, and I'm giving them an answer that's not true, effectively. But with the hope that this will actually trigger something more interesting, this will trigger a much more interesting conversation.
To be fair though, I do the same. When people ask me what do you do, I know what they're asking, innit? And in my head, I have that internal battle too. It's like, do I tell you that I don't know, like I run a podcast? I like, what do? I look after a cat. You know what I mean? Like, I like playing sports. Or like, do I tell you what I do for a living, which is relatively boring? Do you know what I'm saying? But I think listening to you say that though, if next time somebody asks me what I do, I'm just gonna tell them straight up that I run a podcast. And I think you should say you do filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because they're not asking you what your job is explicitly.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
So if they try to say, oh, like how's that going? You're making a lot of money off that. Be like, no, but it's just what I do.
Yeah. For
Do
sure.
you know what I mean? And just see how they react, innit?
For sure, man. You got to, man. You got to. Like, and it's mutually beneficial as well because you actually are basically offering them the opportunity to have an actual conversation.
Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. Like, oh, tell me more about that. What's that about? What is the podcast about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That.
And I think it probably like throws people off a little bit because they're expecting a completely different. They're expecting to hear a job.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
then maybe also help them kind of break that barrier of like, you know what? I shouldn't define people by what they do for work.
Yeah.
Because that's such a weird norm in like society, just in general. You know what I mean?
It's a complete norm as well. Like that is the baseline of that conversation.
100%.
And it should be the complete and utter opposite. Yeah, it's really quite fucked up, man. I must say. Yeah, I must say.
I don't know. Do you think that's like something that is? How can I say it? Do you think that's like a flaw of society and just the way society has been structured, or do you just think that's something that like people are always gonna end up gravitating towards, regardless of like the situation that they might live in? Like for example, like obviously our society is very sophisticated in the way that it's structured, isn't it? So like your job role does play a big part in it because that's how you earn your money, that's how you live, that's how like people see you living in a way, yeah. But then let's say for example like a village in Africa, their society is not built in that manner, but you might have someone that's a farmer, you might have like a hunter, you might have a warrior, you might have a this and that and the next. Do you think people still see people for their jobs? irrespective of like environment.
Sure. I mean, look. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it actually, I can't really speak for other cultures necessarily, but especially in English culture, or maybe even extending into European culture, our namesakes, like our surnames, used to be about what you did, right?
Right.
I'm trying to. Like, I've just spaced on people's surnames.
No, but you still see that. You still see it in Indian culture. So you have like Singhs, you have I don't Patels and all that sort of stuff. But I think each surname represents like a place you hold in society.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Like in some sort of like
yeah, exactly. So and that's effectively what the surnames back in the day would do here as well. If you were a metal worker or a woodworker or something, your name would reflect that, you know, and you literally couldn't get away from your own name.
Yeah.
So if someone asks you your name, they're effectively also asking you, like, what do you do, and should I care about your place in society, right? Which is it's mad fucked up, of course. So we're basically steeped in a historical version of this. So this is an issue that's been with us for a long time. But I don't know. It's ridiculous to assume that people don't have. It's the Sonder thing, right? Every person has something interesting in their life. Yeah. Even people that are self-deprecating and say, I don't have anything interesting.
At some point, they do have something interesting.
You just have to break down their barrier maybe for them and go like, no, what are you interested in? Maybe you're not doing anything particularly special outside of work. Maybe you're living between work and home. Maybe that's what you're doing at the moment. But what's your what music do you like? What films do you like? Do you watch sport? You know, you ultimately get to a root of you're interested in this, you like this, you know, and that to me defines a person much more than what they do for work. Of course, every now and then, and this is 1 in 100, I guess. Every now and then the person's work aligns perfectly with their interest, and you go, fuck. And that's a success story. That's basically the definition of a success story. This is what you're interested in, and you're doing it, and you're getting paid for it. Dude, amazing, well done. And those people should be celebrated, because you did it.
Yeah, that's quite tough to get towards as well, man.
100%.
To align those two together is no easy feat, man.
And I've been working on that since I could basically remember. And have yet to achieve it, you know. So it's a long, arduous process. But if you have the stamina and you have the belief,
you can get there.
People can make it happen.
For sure, man.
I think every now and then, you know, for myself, you know, there might be the odd person. Trying to think of a good example. There's a filmmaker called Xavier, forget his surname. He's a Canadian-French filmmaker, and he basically started directing really good movies when he was like 22 or something, right? And like genuinely impressive stuff. And just going like, every year you pass that every time you pass that age. So when I turned 23, I'm like, I'm a year behind him.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Xavier Dolan. 2 years. I'm 2 years behind him, and that's a terrible place to put yourself. You know, comparison
is the thief of joy.
Exactly that, man. It's and that it can be a terrible thing, but on the flip side of that, you have people like Alan Rickman. You look at him, you're like, oh, he actually didn't start acting until he was past 50. Holy shit! Like
that's still got a good
I'm ages away from that. Like you know, so there's always the opposite comparison that can actually mean that. But either way, it's not good to compare. You know, you just got to be on your own journey.
That's it, man. I think these things are tough, man. There has been times where I get a feeling where it's like, bruv, like I really want to do something like this for a living and like, I don't know, make it work and all that sort of stuff. But then I also get the contrary too, which is, I think I was speaking to Koffer about this too, that like maybe I actually don't want to do this for a living because it kind of takes away the joy of doing it to begin with. Do you know what I mean? Like there's, I was speaking to Koffer about, do you know Anthony Bourdain, the chef?
Sure, man. He died recently, right?
Yeah, fairly recently, and he committed suicide, and like for a while I wondered why. Like he had such a good life.
Sure.
For like, okay, obviously everyone's battling their own demons, but like for the most part, he travelled the world, which is what he loved doing. Mm-hmm. Everywhere he'd go, he he'd learn about their culture, their history, like their current climate, and that's another thing that he loved doing. And on top of that, he would also do that through food, and that's what he's known for. He's a chef, right? So it's like, you get paid to travel the world and film yourself, document yourself, do all these things. Like how then could you like hate life that much that you feel like you got to take it away from yourself? But
Of course, man.
there does get to a point though where I feel like if you do what you love as a requirement now, rather than like you do it just because you actually enjoy doing it, it ends up becoming a thing that kind of like self-destructs or eats you alive. So there has been so many times I thought to myself, like, you know what, if I actually didn't make it doing podcasts, for example, if I was a musician, if I didn't make it making music, like, would I actually be that angry? I don't know, you know, because then at least what I'm able to keep is the joy of doing it because I just love doing it.
Absolutely, man. I think that, what's the phrase? Sorting the wheat from the chaff, right?
Yeah.
When you're at uni and there's all these bright-eyed filmmakers or artists or whatever industry you ultimately look at going into, let's say there's 100 people in that room, we'll use it as a percentage, 100%, we all leave. Some people obviously then they weren't really cut out for it in the first place, they get basically terrible grades and they basically drop out the second uni finishes. Let's say that's 50% of them, so we're already down to 50% of aspiring people. Next few people, they get a job offer, you know, it's not great money, but they just, actually, I do need the money, and they basically just kind of go, well, I did the filmmaking thing, but I'm done with that now. We lose another 25%, we're now down to 25%, and then time just starts weighing on people, and like, oh, it hasn't happened for me yet,
so they give up,
and now basically you're down to like 5%, and those 5% are basically undeterred by success, right? Success was never the point, never the driving force. I love this shit and I want to do it. So to your point, if I was a musician and I just loved making music, success would not be the defining factor there, to the point where if it doesn't happen, that's not gonna
it's not gonna affect me.
I'm still gonna do it. I'm still going to do it because it's the thing I love to do. And as you say, sometimes the success can actually get in the way and deter it. You know, Gautier, who everyone would know from the big hit Somebody I Used to Know from like 10 years ago, maybe more. He was making albums for like, he made like 2 or 3 like stellar albums, amazing work. And then he makes this one single track and it becomes a super hit, billions of streams, and he becomes a star overnight. And he was like, I hate this. I hate this. And he's gone. He like basically stopped making music. He's now part of like a 3-piece band, or like,
I think I saw something
does
about
stuff.
This.
But he was like, no, like, this is not what I was in it for. This was never the point.
Man, you know what? I think it takes a lot to step away from things like that, man.
Yeah.
So many people aspire to have like materialistic or just superficial things. You know what I mean? So when you do get there and you do receive that, I think it takes so much to step away from that. I have a friend of mine who talks about like stepping away. He's like, I can't remember exactly what it is and how he says it, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, if this thing works so well for you and it's giving you so much, like, are you still the same without it? So then can you actually step away from it? Do you know what I mean? And like, when you said that to me, it made me think so much. Like, how many things in your life do you feel like, you know, it's such a beneficiary to you, but do you actually feel like you're still the same person without it though?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people that could be something as simple as like your mobile phone.
Yep. For sure.
I don't know, it's something that really interests me, man. And I relate this back to something that I read in the Bible, which is about like the book of Revelations, which is the end of times, and even like in the Gospels as well, when Jesus talks about the end of times to the disciples, and it's specific to the mark of the beast, isn't it? So the mark of the beast, it's the 666 on your hand, and if it's not on your hand, it's on your forehead. So like, I think for me the Bible's incredibly like metaphorical. I don't think it's a very like literal book. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think what the mark of the beast is and what the end of times is, which we can go into a little bit further. The mark of the beast is, if it's on your hand, that means you can't live without it, like just physically. And if it's on your head, it's because it's in your mind all the time and you can't live without thinking about it. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's certain things that if that's how you live, and it's an attachment to like a superficial thing or materialistic thing, then the end of times signifies like a period of like just destructiveness and chaos in your life, because there's certain things you're just not letting go of, and there's telltale signs, and that is one of them.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying? That is one of them, and that could come in the form of like an addiction to your phone if it's in your hand all the time, an addiction to money if it's in your hand, on your mind all the time, an addiction to a drug, like, you know what I mean? And if you can't live without that, then like there comes a point where, you know, your life gets very destructive and it becomes very chaotic. And I've been through that, bro, and I've been through that quite a lot with like quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I find that until I let go, I'm never free. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, it's an amazing thing. I was listening to LBC chat show earlier, and someone called in and basically said that one of this woman's relatives was getting, he was basically like following like mad like far right EDL kind of shit, and he found himself getting so angry about everything. I was just so fucking angry about the state of the country, you know, just so pissed off about immigration, and his relative just said to him like, dude, just put the laptop away, like everything that you're doing, all this anger manifest is coming from what you're reading on this thing, and it's a fabrication. It's nothing. It's just binary, like it's just pixels on a screen. Just close the lid, man. And literally they ended up closing the lid, and as a symbolic gesture they put the laptop under the sofa, like literally out of sight. And he said like within a week he was just like, I feel so much better. Like I feel calmer. You know, I feel like the world is not so heavy anymore. I like to think that some of his racist tendencies started to ease away a little bit. You know, like all, you know.
Yeah, I'd hope so too. Bro. I'd hope so too.
And yeah, it is. You know, obviously this debate is massive at the moment about, you know, like the spread of misinformation, but people can't stop looking at it, man.
It becomes an addiction, bro. It becomes an addiction.
And look, phone's absolutely an addiction at this point.
And that's it, bro. Like if this is something that like you literally can't live without, you have to feed yourself this every day. Like look how destructive people get, bro. They all come together to fight against, like, I don't know, like people that are trying to find a life in their own country. How destructive is that, bro? How, like, I don't know, like how just not with it do you have to be to like really not care or be concerned about somebody's well-being, that they have to leave their country and come find refuge in yours. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. This is one of the big reasons as well why I come off social media, and I've been off social media for a while, and I haven't wanted to get back on it, because bro, like your eyes and the environment that you put yourself in really is the lantern of your body. Like it lights the way, bruv. So if what you're feeding yourself is just a lot of bullshit, you're kind of just gonna go down that path and become like what you feed yourself in a way. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
So
well, you are what you eat, man. It's
literally,
like,
bro.
When people say that, you know, I think a lot of people take that very literally, right? It's like the Bible thing you were saying a minute ago. People take that very literally and kind of think like, well, you know, I like pizza, but I'm not a pizza. You know,
but
they don't know what they mean. Of course, speech, you ingest things, and you thus become the thing. And yeah, absolutely, man. It's a scary notion that we've effectively allowed this to happen. We have basically, what you're saying about like the apocalypse. We've effectively the apocalypse, other than like a cosmic world-ending threat of like a meteor or something like that. The apocalypse that we're going to see is going to absolutely be let in by us. We're going to let it in, right?
Facts,
it's like the vampire mythology. A vampire can't come into your house unless you let them in. Right? It's basically us opening the door and saying, please, yeah, come in. And the advent of AI is absolutely is terrifying to me. And I was in a lecture recently where it was a debate room about AI. And there was about 25 people in there. The guy who ran the debate was absolutely excellent. I wish I knew his name because I would have shouted him out. But he basically went, right, first thing we're going to do as a little exercise, AI, is it good or is it bad? I'm going to go around the room, everyone introduce themselves, and you say, is it good or is it bad? And you can't be on the fence. You might be on the fence in reality, but for the sake of this argument, you have to say one or the other. I was like the second or third person to answer. First two people, good. Got to me, I was like, bad, so bad. And then I think like two other people said bad sometime after me, and then the rest of the room was good. I was like, fuck, we're letting it in. Like, this is a small sample group of the world at large. This room is synecdoche for the world at large, and we're letting this shit in. Like, people are going, yeah, this is great. This makes my job so much easier. And look, if someone fucking hates their job and it's a shit job and it pays terribly, and AI is going to help you get through that day, I totally get it. I totally get it. But man, like, it's not gonna end well. It's not gonna end well.
I was watching, bro. It's funny you say this actually, because I watched something today, and it was George. It was like just like a very small video on George Orwell, and like a lot of the part of the video was based on the work 1984, 84, right? And it's the idea that like it's not really an apocalypse, but like the world kind of destroys itself because it allows things that they wouldn't want in.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they create a dystopia.
Yeah. So this is what I was thinking, and I started reading the comments, because one comment just kind of like came up underneath the video, and I was like, oh, that looks a bit interesting. Let me read it. And I read it, and it was about another author who wrote a similar book to 1984, but his concept wasn't that the world would like self-destruct because it lets things in that it doesn't want. It's because it lets in things that it does want, and those things end up consuming you. So things like, and it also spoke about letting things in that like stop giving you the ability to think. So things like AI, where it thinks for you, it kind of takes away your ability to think about things for yourself.
Yeah.
And when you remove that ability from people, like that's it. It's just a mess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because look, this is something that I've just found like just very basic in life too, especially recently, that like if you don't figure things out for yourself and you only listen to what you've been told to and follow that, you're no better than like, I don't know, like a sheep in a herd that might be following the wrong thing. Do you know what I'm saying? You're better off kind of going in your own direction and figuring out things for yourself, because part of life is being able to understand it from your own lens. And if you can't understand it from your own lens, well, you definitely ain't gonna understand it from somebody else's, are you? So in trying to follow something that doesn't sit right with you, or it's just gonna kind of lead you down confusion and just like you're just gonna separate yourself from who you actually are, and you're just not gonna be very genuine. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know, man. It is a scary thought though, bro, that like how, and it's also, I think it's even more scarier how like easy it is to let these things in because you actually enjoy them, or you like
exactly that. But it's easy because they're easy, right? They make your life easier, and thus you let them in. Nothing that's good is easy, really, right? So for instance, you're right, like these things will think for us, but they're ultimately going to like move for us as well. So for instance, the recent advent of like the electric scooter hype, right? Like, yeah, people are getting around quicker and easier, but they're not walking anymore. So all of a sudden their health's going to be impacted. Getting something from McDonald's is cheaper and easier than buying ingredients and making it at home. And I don't want to sound hypocritical, I do that myself, because when it is easy, fuck yeah, man.
Trust.
Like oh man, that saves me so much time today, you know. So you eat the McDonald's and then you get on your electric scooter and you don't walk it off, and eventually these things are going to compound, right? And they already are. We've seen like, you know, massive rises in obesity in America and stuff, and probably here as well. I'm not too like clued up on how that is going on here, but yeah, basically it's ease that is affecting us. People are just wanting their days to be easier and easier and easier, because I don't know, maybe it is part of this. People are just they're bored of like, I have to work all day and then I have to like do things for myself after. No, man, I'm just gonna slob. I'm gonna be fed this shit that's on TV. That's like that is just content. I don't want anything difficult. I don't want any art. I don't want anything that is gonna challenge me tonight. I'm just gonna sit and watch Love Island, and I'm gonna have a pizza.
That's it. I'm gonna be a vegetable for the rest of the day and do nothing else. I hear it, man. I do, bro. I can't lie. I think about this a lot, and I think about like how much, just like the way society has been structured really plays a part into all this sort of thing. Like I know it's deep talk, and like well, every time I try to talk to people about this, they're always like, "Bro, you and your hippie shit again." But I'm just like, no, not really. Like whenever I see these things and whenever I hear these things, it really makes me think just about life in general and about how we live life. And for me, that's quite important.
Yeah.
Well, at least now it is, bruv. And I think a lot of it, obviously you can't pinpoint it down to one thing. There's many different factors that affect like why certain things are the way that they are. But like so many things are affected by just like the structure in which we live in at the moment. And I think consumerism is one, because you're just constantly bombarded with things and being told to like, I don't watch this, watch that, buy this, buy that, and you can't really make choices for yourself no more and all that sort of stuff. But I also think like part of making life easy is another thing. But why do we need to make life easy in the first place? Because I understand that there's certain things in life that are hard but they're very rewarding, but then there's certain things in life that are hard which are just not rewarding at all, and are very like, they're just very soul draining in a way. And I think like when, for example, when I hear the Tate brothers talk about like the Matrix, escape the Matrix and this and that and the next, I don't think it means make millions and like buy whatever you want to buy. I think it's just more so stop accepting the norm of getting like a 9 to 5 and working a 9 to 5 and only doing that for the rest of your life, so you can kind of like pay for a house that the government might have given you, or like you're renting off somebody else, that like you can just about afford that food and like maybe a few luxuries on the side, and that's it. Like there has to be another way to live rather than just that. But
that's literally what the Matrix is about, man. Like they when they talk about that, they are literally they've read the film effectively correctly. You watch that film again, you're effectively, what you're seeing is you effectively have like the world as we have it today, but to get out of that world requires a tough journey, right? Like Neo and the gang in the Matrix aren't. It's not easy peasy what they do. They spend movies and movies and movies to try and create utopia, and they go through a lot of hardship. And I think part of the thing is we have to experience hardship in order to get to the other side. But people less and less are accepting the hardship, because they're like, oh man, like I do this shit job for like 9 hours a day that I hate, and I get shit money for it. Yeah, man. Like I don't want to do anything else today. Literally, and I get like the powers that be, the higher 1%, they have created the perfect situation for them, where if we can keep people trodden down enough, they're not gonna even bother trying to revolt, because they're going to be too worn down, too worn out, too lazy to even try. And the simple pleasures that we get them is enough for them to be like, you know what, like maybe I can continue doing this and get by, you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. I can just about afford to go to the odd concert. I can go to go on a holiday once a year, maybe once every 2 years. I can maybe do one big one once every 2 years and a little one once every year. You know, if you can convince yourself of these things and that actually that will do me, that's fine, then they win, man. It's true, bro, it's true. I think the very first time that like I thought to myself, this cannot be right and this can't be it, was when I think I got my first job, or when I just thought about getting my first job, because I always knew how the holiday system worked. And it was, I only get 30 days out of 365 for myself. Like, what am I doing with the rest of my days, bruv? I'm just giving it away. Like, for me, I don't know, man, that just never sat right with me. And then when that paycheck comes in the end of the month and you realise it's nowhere near what the effort you've put in reflects, do you know what I mean, bro? Yeah, man. Reflected. That there, yeah. It's so disheartening. Yeah, man, it's a killer. It's tough, man. Look, I'd rather do something tough and find it rewarding at the end of it, and rewarding in the sense of like, I don't know, like it could be just be like your own personal achievement, than do something tough, not find it rewarding, but get paid like a decent amount for it. Absolutely, man. I've yet to make a movie that has warranted like anyone to give me budget externally. So, you know, everything I've ever had to do has been out of my own pocket effectively. And basically what that tells me is that this for me is beyond like any sort of fiscal or financial realm, right? This is purely for the sake of love of the craft, love of art, love of experimentation, love of just doing something fun and interesting and communal, and it's hard. It like takes years, man.
Yeah,
Like,
bro.
I'm trying to put a feature film together at the moment, which will be my first one, and you know, I'm fucking buzzing for the day that can eventually come around. It's going to be years of work. I've already been sat on it for over a year. The writing process is taking months and months and months and months. And when that's done, it's going to be months and months, maybe even a year before I can even start shooting anything. Because planning, preparation, and then you shoot the thing at great expense to yourself. And then, you know, you spend however long editing it, and then you probably spend more money trying to get it out there to festivals and whatnot. At that point, you're in a big financial hole, and people might be going like, what's the point of that? Like, the point of it is it's amazing, you know.
It's my creation. This is what I wanted to give to the world. Like, this is what I wanted people to see, man.
And if I die not having reaped any financial rewards from that, man, that exists forever. I've been thinking about that a lot recently as well.
That's nice. That's a nice way to see it, bro.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's legacy. But I've also been kind of recently thinking of the flip on this, because I've been obsessed with legacy for a long time. Part of this because I was really disheartened that my dad always pursued like a lot of like businesses. He wanted to like make something for himself, and he never did. He never got the opportunity, and I always thought so fucking shit about that. I was like, oh, man, like it just never happened for him. And I always thought to myself, well, I'm going to make it happen for me in the wake of that. But actually, more recently, I've been thinking, yeah, but actually, his life wasn't meaningless for not having achieved anything.
It's about, bro. This is about like defining people by what they do.
Indeed. His life was extraordinary, and beautiful, and loving and caring. You know, so he had all these amazing, like lovely things about him, and the people that remember him for those things, right? So maybe the world doesn't remember him, but the people that remember him give him credence, give him, you know,
absolutely, bro.
Which is obviously wonderful. It's kind of like the whole thing, you know. If you accidentally didn't hit record on this conversation, right? Obviously, we're like, fuck, man, like we don't have the content, but the conversation was fun.
Yeah, that was the whole point of doing it. Yeah, bro, 100%.
Right? So we still got to have a chat. We got to throw some shit into the ether, and whether or not it goes online because it just didn't record for whatever reason, you know, annoying, but whatever. You know?
Yeah, it is what it is. Literally,
it's like, you know, if the tree falls in the woods, did it make a sound if no one was around to hear it? Thing. Yeah, of course it did.
Yeah,
that tree was mighty, and it deserves that in its final moment it got to make a mighty sound. Of course it made a sound. You know, give a fuck if no one was around to hear it.
Yeah, I like that a lot still. That's nice. I really like that a lot. It's true, man. It's true, bruv. You got, people, it's so tough, man. Yeah, you can't define people by I don't know, their statuses, their jobs, or like what it is that these things, like what it is that they do, like that sort of way. Like, you just have to remember, like, they also had an adventure in life the same way you did, and like their outcome was different, but regardless, they had a blast, fam. You know what I mean? And that's what you got to remember them for, bruv. 100%.
And
man.
In the ups and downs, man, it's it's all definitive shit. It all meant something. It all ultimately, you know,
facts, man.
You know, it gives that life a tapestry. It gives it X amount of stories, you know, and you know, a lot, like, so I don't know what movies I sent you, and I don't know which ones you would have watched.
I watched all the ones that you sent me, bro, and they were pretty good. Yeah.
So you would have seen, I think you would have seen the three. I probably sent them to you, but I made 3 films, which I affectionately called the Malcolm trilogy, which was my dad's name.
Nice.
And effectively, what for my money, what they are is they are a tapestry of stories that aren't necessarily about him. Like I was saying earlier, you know, it's a jazz pianist, but it's not about jazz piano. It's about my dad, but it's not about my dad at the same time. And it's these little stories that that further root meaning into his life, because it's like, you know, these are the concepts that I've kind of created out of certain things that happened to him, and thus I've been able to tell a story from that, etc, etc, etc. So there's 3 films that I've made that I called the Malcolm trilogy. One was called Keepsake, which was like set in a dementia care home.
Yep.
There was one called Latent, which was about a guy that's going off to bury the family dog. And there's one called Orchard Road, about a serial killer. My dad was not a serial killer.
Yeah. I watched that one, and I figured, like it was a while since I watched them. But the serial killer one for me, I was trying to figure out like what the relevance was.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you want to tell me?
It's an interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Basically, my dad was a self-employed gardener.
Yeah.
And he got dementia really quite young, like much younger than people generally should. In fact, I think when he was first diagnosed, he was one of the youngest in the country.
Is that why? Just out of curiosity, the actor in the one with the dementia home, was quite young.
That ultimately came down to
or did that just happen by like coincidence?
Yeah, that was kind of coincidental.
Okay.
It basically came down to casting because we didn't have the budget to like cast whoever we wanted. It was basically whoever was available, and that guy was available and he was up for it. So you're in, man. That was that obviously is somewhat autobiographically relevant, but it wasn't the point. But Orchard Road, it's this serial killer movie. But basically, as I say, my dad was a self-employed gardener, and he spent hours and hours of the day on his own doing gardening work. And what I came to some form of conclusion, because they were basically telling us like, look, so with dementia, obviously it's a physical ailment rather than a mental one. Like it's literally kind of eating away at the brain. But mental stimulus and thought exercises and all these kind of things actually does help in like maintaining memory, maintaining brain function, all this kind of stuff. It's all very symbiotic. But being that he was alone all the time and with no one to talk to or converse with or like to share, like he wasn't having any of that stimulus, right? So I basically wanted to make a film that looked into so the character in Orchard Road, for my money, clearly has some form of like autism. Yeah. But what I wanted to explore was what happens when someone with that ailment is left like completely alone with like no help, no stimulus. I will take back the word ailment for autism, by the way. It's obviously not an ailment, but that was kind of what I was trying to explore. And basically, I changed it from Alzheimer's to autism because I wanted to kind of separate it from the whole like actual like. I didn't want it to be autobiographical in any sense of the word. So I was like, I want to pursue and explore the idea of like what loneliness can do to someone's mental function. Without making it too overtly about like what it's about. And it was the same with the latent about the guy burying the family dog as well. That didn't happen in my life. That we never went through that process. But my dad did in his dementia. When he was on a gardening job, he went into the bushes to have a piss and put his keys like on a tree branch. And he walked away, it's kind of bittersweet funny because it's like, idiot. But at the same time, it's like, man, it was the Alzheimer's that clearly made him forget it. Yeah. And he basically lost his van key and he couldn't find it. And he was like, I can't get home. I can't, and it was stressful, it was mad stressful. He had to get another key, however much that cost, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, maybe like 6 months later, he goes for a piss in the same bush. And he's going pissing and this key is just here, just dangling in front of him. He's like, fuck. And it was hilarious, right? So basically I like the idea of like someone losing something and then finding it, but doing that on like what's the word? Like a lineage scale, like so it's like a parent losing something and then the son finding it.
That was nice.
Yeah,
I did enjoy that one quite a lot, to be fair.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to check those out, that's there on my YouTube.
We'll put a little link in the description so people can click on that, you know what I'm saying?
Nice,
they can start watching things.
And they're quite old now as well. They were, I'd say they're three of the films that I made when I was a bit younger. They're probably about 10 years old now. Maybe a bit more, in fact. But I think they were the first ones that I'd made that I started to recognise, like, actually, I think I'm kind of hitting something quite good now. I'm hitting a point of my filmmaking career or process that actually, this is I could be pretty good at this. Actually.
No, it's good. It's nice, bro.
Yeah, so
It's
they're
nice,
rough
man.
around the edges, absolutely. They're not perfect in any sense of the word, but there's some flavour to them, man. There's some
100%,
cool stuff in there.
I want to
There's some cool
see
stuff in there.
yeah, man. I want to see the feature film once it's done and dusted.
Yeah,
and
man.
it's-
I'll tell
and
you
it's
what
settled
it's
and stuff,
about
you know what I'm
when
saying?
I'll tell you what it's about when we're off air. I can't reveal that to the world yet.
I'm excited, man.
fear
I'm excited.
Of, someone grabbing it before I can get it made.
Yeah,
It is. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a wonderful feature film, man. And I really like to hope
This is
that
your first one, right?
It will be, yeah. I like to think it could stand to resonate, man. I think people will really get something out of it.
Are you excited to make like a piece of work that's like probably your biggest one yet? Like
Absolutely.
a lot bigger than like, and a lot longer and a lot more like of thoughtfulness and process that goes behind it. Are you excited to go down that route?
Definitely, man. I think it's one of the other parts of the creative process, much like what you're doing here, and I'm sure you're very much invested in the idea of challenging yourself as you go, maybe doing some bigger and grander things. I think the act of challenging yourself has to be an important part of the process. Just so you don't stay in a lane of stasis, you don't end up standing still on what's already working. Because I could quite happily continue making little short films and reaping some nice compliments, comments, some nice criticisms, etc. I could continue to do that and that would be fine, but I wouldn't feel completely what's the word, I wouldn't say satisfied.
Would you say satisfied is the word?
I wouldn't feel completely satisfied knowing that
Accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. Staying when I know that I could push the boundaries a little bit further.
Yeah, man, 100%.
And especially, I think with what I'm trying to do now, it's probably the furthest I could potentially go without having external funding. So to find that level and hit it and make it, hopefully, fingers crossed, good, with like no money, would be an amazing achievement.
100%,
I say no money, like it'll cost however much it costs, but after that I feel like it will be like, okay, the next idea is a bit broader, a bit grander, and thus I need some external help. But the beauty of having a feature film under your belt at that point is you can go, look, I can make them. So
That's
I
the whole
promise
point
you
of it.
that when you give me money, I can make another one.
It's true, man. No, it's true. I think there was one thing listening to Rick Rubin. You know Rick Rubin, right? Yeah. That stood out to me and like really actually just made me say, you know what, I'm gonna do the podcast thing regardless of like the equipment or what I have money wise, etc. And he said that like back in his day when he was young and making music and all that sort of stuff, he had no money, no budget, no nothing. And the way that he done things with his people was very much just like, by any means necessary, we'll make it work somehow, one way or another, and that's just how it's gonna go. So when I heard that, I thought to myself that, like, you know what, like, why, like, money shouldn't be a reason to hold people back from doing things. Like, that even goes into like being charitable, for example. Like, some people say, no, when I got money, I'll give to charity. But if you're not doing it now without the money, what makes you think you'll do it when you do have money?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
it's funny, my feature film touches on this a little bit.
Really,
I look forward to discussing with you.
nice.
Yeah,
I like that quite a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like that quite a lot.
Absolutely, I think it comes down to like, I guess it comes slightly down to personality types. You kind of basically are who you are, and no amount of money is going to change who you are. So if you're already of a charitable disposition, then you'll always be that, right? You'll always be that, regardless of how much money you give. And maybe there are some people that maybe don't know how they can be charitable, so maybe I can give them the benefit of the doubt. There might be some people that are just very impoverished and they go like, I feel like I'm a charitable person, but I just don't know how I can possibly help. Maybe at that point they need a bit of education. Like, sometimes to be charitable is as simple as
conversation with a stranger. Yeah, bro.
Offering a kindness.
Yeah, bro.
Helping someone cross the road.
Yeah, that's it.
You know,
that's
a
it.
guy comes up on a mobility scooter with his shopping in the car, and you offer to put it on the fucking till for him. You know, little gestures of charity. You know, of helping your fellow man. It's
literally,
like,
bro.
It's not like it's not mad hard.
It's not rocket science, bro, literally.
For sure. But you can see why some people might go like, you know, as I say, it's very steeped in our culture. Money is everything. So people, if you don't have any money, you just feel useless. You can't do anything, and it's so not true. And much to what Rick Rubin's saying, you know, that I'm making a documentary at the moment about my hometown of Hatfield, and we're just DIYing it. We're just making it ourselves.
By any means necessary.
And we're making this love letter to Hatfield that hopefully all Hatfieldians will enjoy or get something out of.
Nice.
And you know, the Hatfield Town Council, or the Welwyn Hatfield Town Council, or the Hertfordshire Town Council, they're not doing it. They're not. You know, they haven't even considered it. You know, like you know, sometimes it takes the people to do something.
100%. It'll be nice though, actually, if you can like reach out to the council or whoever it is to be like, yo, look, like, I made this film about our town, like, we should put this up somewhere so people can sit and watch, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, actually, we're going to do that ourselves as well.
Nice.
Because there's a once I did some shooting for my town's council, and I did like a week's worth of filming. I had to book off time off work to do it, and they didn't pay me, man. Like, they owed me money and they still haven't paid me. So I was always thinking I wanted to make a documentary about Hatfield, and I thought, oh, I'll get them to commission it. No, man, fuck that. Fuck that. So instead, what I'm going to do, what I am doing, is this little documentary I'm making about Hatfield is a love letter to Hatfield. It's also a love letter to maybe the more shitty aspects of Hatfield. Yeah, but
it has to be. It has to be brutally honest.
It has to be, I like to think it is, man. But within it, we get the odd fuck you to Hatfield Town Council.
Nice.
Well. And when I eventually do finish making it, I will be inviting members of the council to the screening. You know, nice. It'll be a lovely little punky kind of DIY documentary that hopefully
will be sick.
That I like to think will resonate more with people of Hatfield than like the Hatfield Town Council commissioned documentary could ever do, because they'd obviously want to try and sell it on its positives, whereas we're trying to sell it more as what it is.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
that's
and
nice.
I look forward for the world seeing it, because basically what happened was a few months ago, an article came out about the 10 most boring cities in the world, and Hatfield, which isn't even a city, I might add, is on the list, and it ranked number 5.
Really?
And we're basically trying to make this doc to say, like, come on.
Yeah, we're not that bad.
No, we're certainly not. Like, we've got some mad characters in our town, man. So I think it not only will the people of Hatfield enjoy it, but I like to think it will reach maybe a bit further. Yeah, it'll be cool, man. I'm really looking forward to getting it.
How far in are you, would you say?
We're basically entirely shot. We've got like one more day of shooting, I'd say, and then we'll be done. And then just, you know, X amount of editing on my part to get it like proper,
piecing it together.
Yeah, proper done, proper crispy. Yeah, nearly there.
I'm excited for this one. This one's gonna be good, man.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that to the world, man. Yeah, man.
Bro, I can't lie, I think we should cut it there, bro. I think that's such a nice way to end it. We'll look forward to the documentary on Hatfield, you know what I'm saying? That'll be nice. And
you know, thanks a lot for having me on, man.
No, man, my pleasure, my bro. 100%, bro, my pleasure. If there's anything else that you want to say on camera before, I don't know, you shout out your work, bro, whatever it is. We'll put links in the description.
Yeah,
we'll do the whole shebang, you know what I mean?
Out. If we just link my website, actually, that'll probably be the best way.
Yeah.
People could check out everything, because I do everything from, I'd say, documentary, short film, narrative, music video, promotional film to a degree. So I'm basically hitting a lot of avenues. So yeah, if there's any like musicians listening or anything like that and want to discuss videos, anything like that, I'm up for the discussion.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on.
No, bro, my pleasure. Lovely. I really enjoyed that, man. Honestly, bro. We have to do that again sometime soon.
Absolutely,
bro. I really enjoyed that, man. I really actually enjoyed that, bro.